Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Allison Ford, Vice President of the Headhunters, and I can see we have a great turnout really from across the country here today. We're excited to connect you to another one of our employer webinar series. We host these once a month to help you grow your thriving businesses and stay ahead of trends and develop your own professional careers as well. Today we're really excited, and I think the turnout is an evidence that this is a topic that's near and dear to many people's hearts. So a few quick housekeeping items before we begin. We're going to have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, you're welcome to type them into the chat panel, and we'll address as many as possible at the end. We'll have about a 40-minute presentation and then Q&A. Important to think that you can be present and really just relax without madly taking notes. Just enjoy the presentation today, and we'll send an email out tomorrow to all attendees. And what that will have is a copy of this webinar recording as well as a downloadable. So it's my true pleasure today to introduce Lisa Martin. She's a longtime partner of ours, and she's graciously shared her expertise and insights on our leadership panel events in the past. So she's back by popular demand today as our guest presenter on the webinar. Our topic is 5 ways to build presence and how to unleash that leadership confidence, influence, and performance. If you're a leader in any organization, any size, any industry, really at any stage of your leadership journey, you really do have to show up every day confident and decisive. We all need to build these strong relationships, communicate effectively, and be graceful under pressure. So to command a room and leave a lasting impression, inspiring a sense of trust in others, what do we need? Well, we think we need more than just leadership. We need leadership presence, and that's what Lisa is going to walk us through here today. So to introduce Lisa a little bit, she is a professional certified coach who helps people discover how to be high-impact, thriving leaders. She's authored 5 leadership books, writes a leadership blog, coaches leaders one-on-one, offers online leadership courses, and has licensed her Lead and Live Better leadership programs to organizations big and small. She's managed teams, been a partner at a national level, and owned her own company starting at age 28. So what we love about working with Lisa is she really can speak to both the large corporations and the entrepreneur inside all of us. She's worked with clients like Aritzia, HSBC, TK, and PwC. Lisa, we are so lucky to have you with us here again today. So let's get started. Over to you.
All right, thank you. And welcome everybody to 5 Ways to Build Presence. And I'm super excited to be here today to talk with you about presence, your leadership presence. And Allison, thank you so much for your kind words. I'm blushing over here. Today, I'm going to show everybody here on the webinar a proven methodology to increase your influence and impact with anyone, anywhere, anytime. And Allison's already told you a little bit about me, but what I really want you to know about me is I am super passionate about leadership and helping people maximize their potential. That's really what I'm all about. And I'm hoping today that what you'll be able to take away from this session are some nuggets that you can apply right away to increase your influence and your impact. Now, what's important to remember as we move through our time here together today is this is really designed all for you to benefit you as a leader, whether you want to develop as a leader, whether you're responsible for developing others as leaders, developing teams, or if you're responsible for hiring leaders. And the question I want you to ask yourself right now is, how engaged do you plan to be in today's session? And I hope your answer is very engaged. And to do that, my request is that you turn off your devices and your email and you get focused. This is under an hour and it's going to go by fast. And here's the thing, presence requires being present. Someone said in a workshop that I did recently to another colleague, you have so much presence when you are present. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to answer 5 key questions. The first is, what's presence? Do you possess strong presence? What are the 5 elements of presence? If you have direct reports, what's the one thing you can do to improve their presence? And how can you learn more about presence? So here's the thing, people who possess leadership presence exude credibility and confidence. They've got the sizzle and the steak. They can hold their own with influential people. Heck, they are influential. In fact, research tells us that leadership presence counts for 26% of what it takes to get promoted. And have you ever wondered what enables some people to shine and stand out while others seem to fade away in the background? And indulge me a minute as I talk about the British monarchy to illustrate that point. Let's take Prince William and Kate. A Google search today of their name comes up with 21 million hits. They are loved by the British and they have a solid global following. They can hold their own with anyone, anywhere, from presidents of countries to little children. They are royals. They possess what I believe is great presence. Now take Prince Charles and Camilla. A similar Google search today resulted in 700,000 hits. They are known globally, but not treasured. Many polls have indicated that there is little public support for Prince Charles to take the throne. They are also royals. They possess what I believe is marginal presence. What's the key differentiator between Prince William and Kate and Prince Charles and Camilla when it comes to their presence, you may wonder? I believe Prince William and Kate have mastered the 5 elements of presence. They make everyone they meet feel that they matter. They leave a lasting positive impression. They know how to communicate through various channels, from strategically planned photos of their children to Prince William's compassionate speeches about his mother. They understand how to positively present themselves no matter what the situation. And here's the thing, you can do this too. I often hear from clients that they don't feel that they have a strong presence. They don't feel noticed or heard or remembered. And so today, what I want to show you and show you in a way that you can also show those that you lead is how to exude the X factor and master the skill of presence. But I'd like to hear from you first, and we're going to do a quick poll here. And the question is, do you believe you exude leadership presence? The answers are rarely, sometimes, or frequently. Let's see what you have to say. Okay, the results are coming in, and here we go. So we have the majority of us saying sometimes, a few frequently, and a few rarely. And so let's talk about how can we get the majority of us here on this webinar to answering that poll with the word frequently. I was conducting a workshop recently that's called Lead Advanced for a client, and one of the topics in that program is presence. And I asked people to tell me, who did they think had great presence? And some of the names that came up were Bill Clinton, Macklemore, David Suzuki, the CEO of the Vancouver Canucks. And I asked them, well, what is it about these people that makes you name them as someone of having great presence? And they said, well, all these people make you feel great. They make me feel at ease in a situation. They're often the smartest person in the room. And I said back when I was listening to this, it struck me like a lightning bolt. I said, well, people with presence are like magicians who cast a spell. And for years when I was in public relations, I did something called media coaching and presentation coaching. And I helped lots of big executives from big companies like Home Depot and Bell and Nintendo really get better at being in front of the media and being better at the podium. And then it was my turn. I had to be in front of the room for either sales or tough conversations. And I had to apply everything that I was teaching others to myself. Now, honestly, I had some great successes, and I also had some colossal failures. And I figured out when I did fail, What were the reasons? Well, the reasons came down to lack of preparation, not being confident in my material or my message, not being physically ready. So in other words, not having a good sleep the night before, eating poorly, and also not setting my purpose or my intention for the interaction itself. And so what I did was I understood this, so I practiced more. I kept analyzing. I read Nancy Duarte. I watched tons of TED Talks, and I had lots of tough conversations and lots of sales conversations. And I continued to document what worked and what didn't. And finally, I learned how to conquer fear and be more confident. And I learned the secret to great presence on and off the stage, which I'm going to share with you now. Being a successful leader requires presence. People with presence really magnetize a room. They leave a lasting impression and inspire a sense of trust in others. They are credible, confident, and decisive, and they are able to build strong relationships and communicate effectively, and most importantly, to be really graceful under pressure. So they exude what I call the X factor. And this means that you've really got it all together. You can hold your own with the top guns. You can fit in comfortably with influential people. And other leaders know that you can take on great responsibility and manage well when a crisis hits. Now, here's the most important thing. People who possess great presence have a definite impact on others. People who believe in their own potential for greatness when they are around those who possess solid presence. So this makes me think really about all the kinds of opportunities that we have to exude that X factor. And when I think about this, it reminds me of Muhammad Ali. Now, if you remember Muhammad Ali, he was the self-proclaimed greatest. He did have amazing presence, that is for sure. And I was watching a documentary about him recently, and the interesting thread that went all the way through it with everyone who was speaking about their experience with Muhammad Ali, they all said the same thing. They said that when you're with Ali, he made you feel great about yourself. To me, that is the signature stamp of someone with great presence. And I'd like you to think about that for a minute and think about the times when you've been around someone who you believe possesses great presence, and think about how you felt about yourself when you were in that interaction with that individual. 9 times out of 10, you probably left that conversation or presentation feeling good about yourself. Now, presence is not a superficial attribute. Presence is not necessarily about flashiness or having a big personality. In fact, anyone can develop it and remain authentic to their true nature. You don't need to be extroverted or charismatic or a barrel of laughs to show great presence. I mean, you can just think about the difference between the Dalai Lama. In fact, he is probably one of the most gentle, quiet-spoken individuals, yet he has a tremendous presence. And then when you think about the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, definitely extroverted and has his own style and definitely has a very strong presence. So it's important to really be true to who you are when you are exuding your leadership presence. The minute you try to act like someone else, people can sniff out that authenticity immediately. So you must be authentic to who you are. So why do we care about this? Why do we care about having strong leadership presence? Well, people with strong presence, they're the ones who get promoted faster. They're the individuals who actually make the sale. And people with strong presence, they're the folks inside organizations who get the stretch assignments, the cool assignments, are the ones that are noticed and have opportunities for advancement much sooner than those who do not exude leadership presence. And people with leadership presence really inspire others to take action. And in my mind, that is a true signpost of a great leader, that you can actually inspire other people to do something, not just say something, but to take a step forward, to get that project done, to advocate for a position. That is the sign of someone with a great leader in general, and a leader who has great leadership presence. All right, I now want to share with you the 5 elements of presence. And what I'm sharing with you now is the beginning of the presence model from the LEAD Advanced program. What I'm going to do now is to describe each of the elements, and I will then share a self-assessment statement to help you assess how proficient you are in each of the elements. So when I ask the question, I want you to think this in your mind and jot it down on a piece of paper. We're not going to do an online poll here. This is just for you to jot down on a piece of paper next to you, or pop it in your notes in your phone, whatever works for you. But when I make the statement, I want you to answer with either rarely, sometimes, or frequently. All right, so either rarely, sometimes, or frequently. Okay, now we're going to get started, and I'm going to take you through the 5 elements. And obviously the first element has been sitting up here for a while for you to take a look at on the screen. The first element is substance. And substance is really knowing your stuff. It's about having a clear understanding and expertise, subject matter expertise in the job that you do, in your chosen vocation, and really having a track record of success. People are aware of it, that you have done well in that. So the assessment statement for you to now see where you're at on substance is this. Remember, you're to give yourself either rarely, sometimes, or frequently. Here's your assessment statement. I rarely, if ever, feel out of depth discussing my core area of expertise. I rarely, if ever, feel out of depth discussing my core area of expertise. The second element is relational authenticity. That fundamentally focuses on your ability to create genuine connections as your real self, or as your authentic self. And you make people feel that they matter, just like Ali. So your statement to measure here is, I have the trust of others. Rarely, sometimes, frequently. I have the trust of others. Your next element is style. Style fundamentally is how you show up day to day. And when I talk about style, I like to talk about the ACE of style. ACE being an acronym for appearance, confidence, and energy. So appearance meaning that you've pulled yourself together, that you are buttoned down. I'm not talking about you necessarily having to be high fashion. If you're in the fashion industry, then that would be appropriate. If you're not in the fashion industry and you're in your general corporate environment, it's dressing the way that is appropriate for your role. Confidence, the C for confidence, is being able to exude confidence, to be calm, to be comfortable in who you are and how you're showing up. And then there's E for energy. Energy is fundamentally about matching your energy with whatever the situation is. So if you're in a situation where you need to be inspiring someone, then you want to be in a higher energy and a motivational type of energy. If you're having to deliver very bad news, then you need to have your energy match that. You might need to have a quieter body stance and a more neutral facial expression. All right, so when we're talking about style, the statement here to measure your proficiency is this. I consistently exude confidence via my posture and body language. I consistently exude confidence via my posture and body language. Rarely, sometimes, or frequently. Next element, communication. Communication, what's really behind communication is getting your point across clearly in the right time, in the right way, to the right people. It's really understanding what are your key messages and your ability to be clear and concise with communicating those messages. And the measurement statement for communication is this: I communicate thoughts, feelings, and insights with clarity, directness, and simplicity. So one more time. Easy for me to say. I think that's hilarious. I'm talking about communicating and I can't say the word. I communicate thoughts, feelings, and insights with clarity, directness, and simplicity. Rarely, sometimes, or frequently. What's your score? All right, now we're getting to the last element in the model, which is situational agility. Situational agility focuses on your ability to dance with the client, the audience, and the situation. In other words, your resilience and your flexibility and your how you actually assess a situation and respond. And in my experience, the more advanced you are in your career, the better you may be at situational agility. And part of the reason for that is because you've been exposed to a variety of scenarios and situations, and you can kind of see a curveball coming before it hits you square in the head. Now, some people have a natural gift for this and are very good at situational ability early in their careers. Now, your assessment statement is as follows: I quickly read a room and handle myself accordingly. I quickly read a room and handle myself accordingly, either rarely, sometimes, or frequently. All right, that is the presence model. These are the 5 elements of presence: substance, relational authenticity, style, communication, and situational agility. Now, the reason that substance is in the middle of the model, it is the foundational piece for the model. All of these other aspects of presence will not matter if you don't have the substance behind all of these other elements. So keep that in mind. You may be good in one area or better in another area, but it starts first and foremost with you having substance, you knowing your stuff and really understanding your day-to-day role and your subject matter. Okay, now now that you've had a chance to measure on each one of these 5 elements, we're now going to move into our next poll. And this is where I'd like to hear from you. Which element is your weakest? Substance, relational authenticity, style, communication, or situational agility? And let's see how we're doing as a group. Okay, the answers are coming in, and here we go. Okay, so we have quite even in terms of our responses in terms of areas where we are the weakest. It looks like the highest one is coming in at communication at 32%, then situational agility at 26%, and the rest. And relational authenticity at is probably for this group, one of your strongest areas. So that is fantastic. And what's important about this poll and what's important to me for you on this webinar is this is an opportunity for you to become more self-aware about where you sit with regard to presence. And the more self-aware you are, the easier it'll be for you to pinpoint what you need to do to get even better. At presence. So let's continue. Let's talk about some things that are important to be aware of when we're thinking about leadership presence. Because sometimes people think they have presence when in fact they're exuding something else entirely, and that is obnoxiousness. Now, I know you may not think this is you. Most obnoxious people or leaders aren't aware of how they appear to others. And obnoxiousness is on a spectrum. It can appear in small or medium-sized doses that are totally invisible to you, but loud and clear to others. No one wants to believe they are obnoxious because of this, few people examine their behavior carefully, and they're often blind to these tendencies. So short story, years ago, I had a client who saw herself as a born leader. She commandeered every meeting she attended, calling attention to herself in every way possible. She believed she was entertaining and insightful, but her humor and helpful advice, quote unquote, were often off pitch, leaving people feeling uneasy and annoyed at times. Now, I advised her to view herself through other people's eyes. At first, she denied reality. She didn't want to see herself as over the top as others did. But slowly, she began to take notice of the effects she was having on her colleagues. She paid attention to eye contact and body language in the room. She really began to read that room. She adjusted the way she showed up, consequently. And she began to sit back, talk a little less and listen more, and take in her environment and really wait to speak until she had something valuable to contribute. She even wrote herself a message in her notebook before every meeting, and it said, "Why am I talking?" With a little self-awareness, effort, and perseverance, she was able to make a positive turnaround. So I say to you, be brave. Look deeply at yourself and notice how others respond to you. Is there a chance you're mistaking obnoxiousness for confidence or presence? And I've got a bit of a checklist here for you to consider to help you figure this out. So checkpoint number 1, do you find a way to share in credit for successes you weren't very involved in? Do you tend to speak more than others in meetings? Do you often correct people? Is your voice louder than average? And finally, are other people laughing at your jokes, or are you the only one laughing? The other thing you can do to do a obnoxiousness self-check is to film yourself either in meetings or doing presentations, and watch the replay. And you'll see and learn a lot about yourself when you can see yourself in video. Again, that's a very brave thing to do, but it will really build your self-awareness around this. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to share with you 5 strategies to help you build your presence. But before I do that, I want to mention something to watch for when you are hiring other leaders or bringing other leaders onto your team, and you want to be paying attention to presence and seeing if these potential hires have leadership presence. And I mentioned to you before about this idea of the sizzle and the steak. And when you hearken back to the model, remember I talked about the fact that substance is the core of the model, and it's the core of a model for a reason, because it's what holds up all of those other elements. And when we're looking at hiring, there's something to be aware of. Some people are and not just hiring, in fact, in all aspects of leadership, but in particular in hiring. Some people have a lot of sizzle. They are really good at communication and style and relational authenticity and situational agility, but they may not have the substance. And unless you dive deep enough into your conversations with people, you may only see the surface. And that sizzle can be very seductive. But my caveat to you, or my warning, is don't get seduced by the sizzle. Make sure that there's always steak there. In other words, the optimal place, the optimal person that you're looking for is, if we can continue with this metaphor, is the best option for you is to find a steak that is sizzling. And there you've got, and I've got to take the metaphor even farther, the full meal deal. So I apologize for the pun on that. So let's talk about now, how can we, what are really some presence building strategies that will support you to grow and develop your presence? Well, the first is to build your relational intelligence. And the question you need to ask yourself for that is, do I really like people? Have I got the desire to make meaningful connections? And not just for myself, but for both parties, that it's mutual. And relational intelligence is like any muscle, it will atrophy if not used. So if you want to build it, what you've got to do is you've got to become more self-aware. You've got to be more visible, open your door at work and at home, be a little more vulnerable, but don't overshare. Brené Brown is a great person to check out to find out more about this. And increase your transparency. And there's a great book called In Everyone Culture, and its authors are Robert Keegan and Lisa Laszlo Leahy, and they're professors at Harvard's Graduate School of Education. And what they talk about in this book is that they did some studies on companies that, rather than companies seeking competitive advantage in their products or strategy, they looked for the competitive advantage being their colleagues, the people that they work with, and the ability for organization to really develop people as human beings. And what these authors argue is that a highly evolved company, which they call a DDO, a deliberately developmental organization, outperforms others. And they cite examples of companies like Bridgewater Associates, which is probably one of the largest and most successful hedge funds in the world, actually pursuing radical transparency. And in other words, they're creating opportunities for every meeting to be recorded and giving the audio files to everyone in the company. There's another organization called Decurion, and it's a real estate development firm, and they do what they call the fishbowl. So they have these huddles with their employees and have fishbowl conversations and get everything out in the open. And what the authors suggest is these types of action, this level of transparency, reduces assumptions and judgments and generalizations. And in doing so, they really, really improve their results. So the things that you want to pull back on if you want to build your relational intelligence is just that. You want to make less assumptions. You want to judge less. You want to be less cynical, I guess, and be more trusting. So stop that idea of coming into a situation not trusting an individual and perhaps moving in the other direction. So that's a little bit about building your relational intelligence. And here's something else. Another area to build in presence is simple as making eye contact. And I had a client who was brilliant, but they threw everyone off because he couldn't make eye contact. And it used to just really freak people out. And one of the exercises that I do in the Lead Advance program is I break people up into small groups and get them to role play eye contact. So we do an exercise where you make eye contact in a conversation and then you do not make eye contact in a conversation. And we explore how uncomfortable it makes people feel. And let me tell you, it makes people feel really uncomfortable, and it completely and utterly diminishes an individual's presence. But really, eye contact. Why does it matter? Well, it's interesting. I saw Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank say once that that when the contestants, like at the beginning of the show, sometimes before they're filming, the contestants have to stand in front of the sharks for a full 5 minutes without saying a word, as you know, the studio lighting's adjusted and they get everything ready for the TV show. And she says that, quote, "When I watch someone who's under tremendous pressure, that's a great test. Even before they open their mouth, I know that I'm out on that person. I just sort of come up with a reason why that I can say on camera. But the truth is, I know I'm out with that individual because the guy's putting his hands in his pockets, he's shifting, he's no longer making eye contact with me, he's sweating bullets, his knees are jiggling. I mean, is this a guy I'm going to give my money to?" So eye contact, practicing and getting good at eye contact is important in building your presence. Another way to build your presence is to find your power pose. Now, research tells us that body language makes up 60 to 93% of communication, of what people remember. And there are some notable appearance blenders, and some of them with regard to that are, research tells us that if you're not pulled together as a woman, it detracts 83% from your credibility and presence. And for men, it's 76%. And so it's important to understand that how you show up in body language and is really relevant to how your presence is perceived. And there's a great TED Talk, if you haven't already seen it, and many people have, by Amy Cuddy, and she talks about your body language shapes who you are. That's the title of the TED Talk. And she's gone in and done the research that shows if you take a power pose like Wonder Woman and you have a strong stance, put your hands on your hips and your shoulders back and your head held high, that in fact what happens is your body responds to that. Your stress hormone, cortisol, goes down, and your fight hormone, testosterone, goes up. And this is a way to really help manage that fight or flight feeling you get, particularly anytime you have to make any kind of, do something tough, like make a presentation, give a speech, maybe have a tough conversation. And it's really, really important. And I even for myself, and I've been speaking for a long time, I learned this years ago, I really have a warm-up ritual. And I have a chant that I repeat. And sometimes, so I don't know if any of you have ever seen me maybe before speaking engagement. I don't know if even Allison has seen me do this before one of the panels that she mentioned I've been on. I'll be in the bathroom and I'll be jumping up and down in the stall doing this chant, because it really helps move all that adrenaline, and it takes it out of flight for me and puts it into fight, which means it'll enable you to have a better performance. Now, the other thing about understanding body language is really important, but so is language itself when you want to show up powerful. And there are certain words and phrases that really do have almost magical powers to instantly increase your credibility. And there is one word in particular that can make a big difference. And I want you to think about this. It's the idea of removing one word from your vocabulary, just one word. And I just said it there, just one word. What is the word? Just. And the idea of removing it is because the word just, it minimalizes what you're about to say. It takes some of the power out of what you're about to say. Let me give you an example. I just wanted to update you versus here's an update. I just wanted to update you versus here's an update. Or I just thought a discussion about our strategy would be a good idea versus now's a good time to discuss our strategy. And you can feel the difference in the power of that statement by removing one word, which is just. All right, let's talk about another way to build your presence. And there's a great video on YouTube, and you can find it. It's you can just Google backwards bicycle, Destin Sandin. And what's great about this video is it talks about how difficult it is to get your brain working differently. Now, we wanted to talk about one of the elements in the model is situational agility. And situational agility is all about being quick and on your feet and getting your brain to see or look for new patterns and adjust. And so to do that, you have to unlock old behaviors and be open to new. So what's great about this video, it brings it home in this video, is Destin shows us how difficult it is if you've learned to ride a bike a certain way, and if you make minor adjustments to how the bike works, and in his case, he changed the way that the steering was opposite, how long it actually takes your brain to figure out how to ride the bike in a different way. And it took him quite a long time. In fact, I think it took him a couple of months to really nail how to do this. And it was a great experiment to show that we need to really work hard at becoming more agile. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is, are you in certain patterns or ways that you need to break or change so that you can be more agile and have a greater situational agility with your presence? And when you think about that, there are really 4 areas to focus on to build your situational agility. And one is adaptability. So that's your ability to think rapidly and anticipate and improvise. The other is to have attention or focus, to concentrate on the relevant information and filter out the irrelevant. And then there's awareness, which is 3 levels. Are you aware of what's happening with yourself, with others, and the environment? And lastly, the fourth area to focus on is absorb. Are you actually absorbing and assessing and absorbing all this information accurately? Situational agility can be improved, but there is a process to it. So today what I want to do is give you an overview of how you can really start getting better at that. Now, one of the questions we asked at the beginning of our conversation is, if you have direct reports, what's the one thing you can do to help them improve their presence? Well, the best way you can help your team is to give them feed forward. Feedback is helpful, but feed forward is even more helpful. And feed forward, really, the gem of it is it focuses on the present and moves looking forward to the future. So in other words, if there's something someone can do to improve their presence, it's not about telling them what they did wrong. It's telling them what they can do in the future to get better. It would really help you in the future to be able to communicate your message more concisely. That's just an example. Marshall Goldsmith is the brainchild behind Feedforward. He coined the term a few years ago. He's one of the most renowned executive coaches in North America. So if you want more information on that, you can just Google Feedforward, Marshall Goldsmith, and you'll find out what how to do it and more about it. But I can tell you, I work with Feedforward in all my coaching clients. I use Feedforward in all my workshops. It's fun, it's helpful, and it really makes a difference in helping people to improve. Now we're going to move to our last poll of our time here together today. And this is, what presence building strategy do you need to work on? We've talked about 5 particular areas. What's the one that you need to work on? What's going to help you out the most? And the answers are coming in. Wow. So power pose is important. Focus on feed forward. Training your brain, building relational intelligence, and making eye contact. Interesting. So this is great. So wide variety. So it looks like there's different opportunities for presence building for individuals on the webinar here, and that's fantastic. So my message to you, as per my previous poll, is now pick the one thing. If you've identified this, pick the one thing and make a plan to start working on it. What is it that you can do to start building in that particular area starting today? So in the famous words of Nike, just do it. You know what you need to do now, just do it. Now, one of the things that we said at the outset of our conversation at the beginning of the webinar is, one of the questions we asked is, how can you learn more presence? That was one of the questions we're going to answer today. Well, I have 2 ways for you to learn more about presence. The first is my Lead and Live Better Intensive. It's a 6-week online live leadership development program for anyone who is serious about developing as a leader and also making their life less stressful in the process. And it starts on November 7th. And we cover a deep curriculum in this program. It's a series of 6 webinars that are 90 minutes long, and we cover some key aspects of being a better leader. And one of the topics that we cover in detail in one of the webinars is presence. And we really get into how can you get better with presence. And in fact, it falls into heroism. One of our hero habits is being able to build presence. If this is something that you are interested in learning more about, just send me a quick email. Just send me an email with LLBI 150 in the subject line. My email address, and it'll be in the chats room, is lisa@lisamartininternational.com. lisa@lisamartininternational.com. And the reason that you're going to put LLBI 150 in there is we have a gift for you, myself and Headhunters, for taking the time to be on this webinar today. And if you decide that the LLBI is right for you, then you will have a $150 discount off the registration fee. So again, this is available to you for the next 48 hours. So if you're slightly interested, email me with LLBI 150 in the subject line, and I will get back to you right away. Lastly, there is a second way in which you can learn more about presence, and I have a chapter from one of my books, Lead Advance, that is available for you. And this chapter is solely on presence. And it's a great way to kickstart building your presence. And it's a gift from me to you. So there is a link on this slide. There will be an email going out to you after with the link. I believe there might be a link in the chat room, and you can access this free chapter. So hopefully either one or both of these things will help and support you to continue building your presence. So now I think it's time to open it up for questions, Allison.
Thanks, Lisa. That was fantastic. I've made myself lots of notes here, and I see we've got some great questions in the chat as well. Many are based around, what can I do right now? So you've definitely got some people excited.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece is around some of the books you were mentioning. So perhaps you could revisit one or two of the books you mentioned. I know Robert Keegan from Harvard had one you said was highly recommended reading material. So can you tell us that again, please?
Yeah, just let me grab the name of that for you. And it's called An Everyone Culture. And Everyone Culture. It's Robert Keegan and Lisa Leahy. So Leahy is L-A-H-E-Y.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And then Brené Brown was the other person I cited for anything around vulnerability. And she's got a great TED Talk, and she's got fabulous books. So you can just look up Brené Brown.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. I'm looking forward to revisiting one of your books too, The Briefcase Moms. The 5 different books. So Briefcase Moms is all about how to manage a career and motherhood or parenthood at the same time without losing your mind and other valuable body parts. Lead is 6 skills to be a rock star leader. So it's all about foundational leadership. Lead Advanced is 6 skills to be the ultimate executive. That's all about more advanced skills as a leader. And then I have 2 other books in the positive psychology realm. One about Live Bigger and another on thriving. Okay.
So those are my 5 books.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I'm looking forward to the free download too. So that's generous of you to share that with us. A couple questions coming in here. So one is, with what we now know, can you help me understand how I would approach a client I had a maybe not so great meeting with in the past, mm-hmm. and now I want to go back and recover or apologize? I think I might have been too forward. What would you suggest?
Great question. My response would be that I love the idea of going back and being transparent about the situation and looking for ways to fix it. Now, this is where Feedforward can come in really, really handy. And it takes a lot of guts and presence just to do that. So whoever asked that question, kudos to you for considering it. And to me, it's one of the hallmarks of a great leader is to really go in and admit, okay, there's something went wrong here, and I think I was at fault, right? So the way to approach it is to do just that, is to make reference to the situation, that you want to have a discussion about the situation. You'd like some feed forward, and you'd like to discuss ways in which you can improve and make sure that the situation doesn't happen again. And I had this exact situation with a coaching client, and when she went forward and did that, it was the best thing that ever happened. In fact, what happened was the relationship got even better as a result of that. So it's way better to get your head out of the sand and hit that head on.
That's great. I'm smiling because I had a client I met with yesterday who said he always does 2 interviews because when he was fairly junior in his career, he screwed up the first interview so badly that someone gave him a second chance to show that he could be a good leader. And so his promise to himself is to always do that with others. So I thought that's interesting. You're right. We're all human, and many people really do appreciate when someone shows they want to stick with it and come forward to make it better. So that's great.
Yeah, I think coming clean is a really good strategy and approach. If you a great sign of a leader is the fact that they'll admit to making a mistake and they'll admit to it quickly.
Yeah, that's the vulnerability again, I think. Yeah. That's great. Another question, do you have a book you can recommend about all-inclusive culture? No,
I don't right now. Okay. I'll think about that though. It might be something you can add into the email. It's not an area that I do. Inclusive culture work is not an area that I specialize in as much as leadership. So I don't have a great resource off the top of my head. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's fine. We happen to have one. Our webinar last month was on diversity and inclusion, and so we'll certainly follow up with posting that link here in the chat if anyone's interested. Perfect. Another question coming in here. We have a fairly young team that has grown up within our business. How would you approach a more junior team to help them build presence?
Great question. I do that all the time with a junior team, and I think one of the junior teams. I mean, I'm brought into organizations to teach this particular skill set, and what I do is a couple things. First of all, we have an assessment to help people assess how they're doing. So again, first and foremost, let's get a baseline self-awareness going. How am I actually doing? And then I basically teach out to the 5 elements in the model and help people gain that awareness around presence and to build it. And one of the things that we do in those workshops, which I think anybody can definitely do, is get people to do a 2-minute presentation and film them, and then work together with them to watch the replay and give them suggestions and feed forward on how they can get even better. That's a real quick way to do it, and particularly with newer leaders, just seeing yourself is very impactful.
I like the idea of doing some of this work as a team, as a group, as you say, setting that tone for culture of working together instead of being ultra competitive necessarily all the time is fantastic. So that's one of the takeaways that really resonated with me. So thanks for that. That's all the time we have for questions now, but if anyone has questions that they would like to follow up with your local recruiter at the Headhunters or directly with Lisa, please do that. I think this is one that's going to work on our minds for a little while, so if you think of something after the fact, don't hesitate. Now, the email will go out tomorrow with the link of today's recording and the download link for Lisa's free chapter. But before you go, we'd like to have you complete a quick survey. So we're going to pop that up on the screen right now. So just take 2 seconds, please, to answer that. It really helps us connect you to the topics that would be most interesting to you. And as Lisa said, it helps us all live and lead better. So we appreciate your feedback. Now, final housekeeping items. With the email sending out tomorrow, you will also be notified about our upcoming webinar. So we're excited to have next webinar November 21st. And the topic there is connecting with millennials and all other generations in the workplace. This is something we get asked very frequently about. And again, trying to find that harmony in the workplace and the way to build an employer brand to attract all age groups to bring balance and good productivity to a team is really important. So join us November 21st for that. A final thank you to Lisa. Once again, Lisa, just so much to digest here. Your experience really does apply to any stage of this leadership journey, so very grateful. Thank you all for tuning in. It's an hour well spent, and we certainly enjoy connecting with you. So have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.